Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host, as always, Richard Tiemann. This is the award-winning Fan Show. That's right, everyone's a fan of something, and we have got something for every fan, especially those of you that are fans of robot fighting time. You battle bots and combat robotics enthusiasts. Ooh, it is such a good day here on the Fan Show because we have another great episode for you. And I know it is a little bittersweet because BattleBots has decided to take a break for Shark Week, of course. Why not? Two of Discovery's biggest shows or biggest times of the year, BattleBot season being one, and then of course Shark Week being the other. But the beauty about Shark Week is that it is an action-packed week. So it's here, it goes, and then it's gone, and we have to wait another 364 days for it all over again. But with BattleBots, though, it's a full season, and we are at the midway point of an outstanding season of robot fights, and we have crowned a Desperado Tournament winner, meaning that of the 16 seeds in the Tournament of 16 to crown a champion towards the end of 2019, we have 15 spots remaining because one has been claimed by your Desperado Tournament winner, which is not so fast, ladies and gentlemen. First, let's recap the awesome action that was the episode dedicated to the Desperado Tournament. First, there was a bonus fight towards the end of the episode. Deep Six, which we've seen in action in a matter of speaking. They had to crank down the voltage, so to speak, on their big primary weapon. And that is a big primary weapon, ladies and gentlemen, because they went just gung-ho, buck wild, all out crazy in the testing box. And the producers and everybody was just like, you need to dial it back, just like 20 notches. And so they did. They went up against Axe Backwards, a good friend of mine, Durjan. Love that man. He is one of the best. As far as like his bot may not be the best, but I feel like his personality and what he's all about really just embodies BattleBots. Love him to death. He's always fun, always a character. Love visiting him when I go down there for the tapings and talking to him. So they had a fight, and Deep Sixth Axe Backwards. I mean, it split him in two. So kind of. You'll have to see it. But what a fun fight it was. Up to that point, you really didn't know which way it was going to go. It started off a little slower than you'd expect. Kurt said he was going to box rush Deep Six, and he did not. And then one shot, two shot, throw! 2.5 shots, and no more Axe Backwards. I'm sure we'll see him later on in the season, but congrats to Deep Six to getting a big win in a big way on a big episode in front of the audience that was the Desperado Tournament audience. So now they may not have been in the Desperado Tournament, but they certainly got to feel good about the remainder of their season. Can they make one of the remaining 15 spots? We'll have to wait and see. So now, Desperado, I know, yak. Deep Six, Axe Backwards, we get it. Okay, Desperado time. Come on, fill us in. Minotaur, number 1 seed, took on Lucky in the first round. Endgame took on Gruff. Black Dragon took on Captain Shredderator, and Warhawk took on Ragnarok. So some familiar faces, some new faces, right? A nice mix. We know Lucky, we know Minotaur. Minotaur, the name in this tournament where he's just like, what? Like, they felt they needed to enter the Desperado Tournament. Like, they felt that they had reached a level of desperation that they needed to do the Don Hudson route, who was last year's Desperado Tournament winner, and win 3 fights just to get it over with? I know. Crazier things have happened, though. Stranger things, good show, by the way, have happened inside the confines of the Battle Box. So, I guess they had some inspiration from Don Hudson, And they figured, hey, we're good enough to win 3 against any of the other, 7 that feel desperate enough to enter this. So, yeah, we got this. They did have a very convincing win over Lucky, so they would advance. Endgame. This one kind of went back and forth. All 4 fights in the first round were by knockout, but Gruff, man, a victim, speaking of Don Hudson, who knows all about this, a victim of the battle box. Their wedges, one of their forks got caught in the kill saw slot, and that was game over, and Endgame would advance to take on Minotaur. That's a reward, right, for your efforts. So that side of the bracket was set. Minotaur, Endgame. On the other side, Black Dragon made quick work at Captain Shredderator. Really feel for the guys in Captain Shredderator because they have a great bot. They've just been plagued by one thing after another, much like Ragnarok. So Black Dragon and Warhawk would win and advance and meet each other in the semifinals. Shredderator and Ragnarok, they got to go back to the drawing board. This was Ragnarok's best fight. However, some of you are probably saying, well, that's not saying a lot. And it's not, but for what it's worth, for what the fight was worth, I thought we got to see Ragnarok sort of a glimpse of its potential with its axe, its primary weapon, and its swinging. The swing forward is great, but it swings too hard back. As a fan watching this, being like, why does it swing so hard back the other way? I don't know if that's something they need to tweak or adjust, but obviously Tim Rackley and crew are going to go back to the drawing board, and they've got the rest of the season to figure this out, which is quickly running out of time. So tick, 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 tick. Black Dragon, Warhawk. What's really sad about these final 4 is that each one of them showed a little bit of a sign of some kind of drive issue. So Endgame versus Minotaur. This one was a good fight up until Minotaur ultimately took control of the fight, and Endgame just was no more. I mean, Minotaur picked him apart, and then Minotaur put them away. Minotaur advances to the final. Who would they meet? Black Dragon or Warhawk? Warhawk had a convincing win over Ragnarok, again, by knockout, but they had some issues there towards the end of the fight. Thought they had him adjusted, but Black Dragon, man, took minimal damage against Captain Shredderator, went in, picked apart Warhawk, felt bad for the guys. They put them away, so they would advance. We have an all-Brazilian final for the Desperado Tournament. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be one of the most menacing bots in there, Minotaur, or the new kids on the block, also from Brazil, Black Dragon? What a fight, what a fight. It would not be a knockout. It would come down to a decision, a unanimous one at that. Black Dragon gets the win over Minotaur. What a moment for the country of Brazil. I mean, this is Black Dragon's first season. These kids are all around the ripe age of 20. And it was heartbreaking to see the guys in Robotics and Minotaur because I love and respect them to death. They're always fun to talk to when I'm down there. Daniel is a phenomenal driver, and you could see that it was just, this was not their fight. They got 2 more wins to their record, which is great, but they really wanted that guaranteed spot in the 16. I don't think they will be out looking in. I don't. I think they will get one of the remaining 15 because they're Minotaur, man. There's a few things they need to get figured out. Black Dragon, though, has punched their ticket to the tournament of 16. And my guest tonight, a man who's walking a little taller after last week's episode, Victor Soto of Rotator. Him and I actually talk about the Desperado Tournament a little bit. Did he consider it? Fun fact, I guess you could say, is the Desperado Tournament was actually filmed before his fight against Tombstone. Because I asked him straight up, I said, would the outcome of this fight had any kind of effect on your decision to maybe enter or throw your name into the Desperado Tournament hat? He's like, I honestly don't know because they filmed the tournament before my fight with Tombstone. So there's a fun fact about the magic of TV and the miracle of film work and cutting room floor stuff. But him and I talk about that. I talked about does he think, because I feel this way, the Desperado Tournament winner, yes, guaranteed spot in the 16, absolutely. But I don't think they should be entered any higher than number 8. I think you're guaranteed a spot, 8 or below. 8 to 16, that's your spot. Because last year, I thought the winner of the Desperado Tournament was guaranteed the number 16 spot, not guaranteed a spot in the tournament of 16. So you learn something new every day, every year. But we talked a little bit about that, his thoughts, my thoughts. So my thoughts on the subject, and you guys are free to comment when you hear this. Either tweet me at FanShowOfficial or at FanShow_robotic. And of course, you can comment on the Facebook page, facebook.com/FanShowOfficial. And anywhere, there's a comment section on the Spreaker post where this will go up first, and then the iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. And there's a YouTube channel as well. You can comment there. Your thoughts. Should the winner of the Desperado Tournament be able to get a seed higher than the number 8? Should they be designated 8 or lower because of the way that they had to go about getting in the tournament? Which I know, 3 wins could be 3 quality wins, could be 3 decent wins. I feel it was 3 quality wins for Black Dragon, who had to fight veteran Captain Shredderator, veteran Warhawk, and then the man, the myth, the legend, Minotaur. So those are 3 quality wins. And now they don't really have to sweat the rest of the season. They will have a remainder of the season. But these guys, their stage is set, so to speak. Your thoughts. Would love to hear it, but without further ado, any more delay, here is my fantastic conversation with the man behind a rotator, Victor Soto. Enjoy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me now is the man who runs the bot that's as good upside down as right side up and backwards and forwards and all that good stuff. And he's also walking a little taller right now. He is Victor Soto of Rotator. How you doing, man? Welcome back.
Hi, good. Thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, look, I know that I'm a big fan and I can be a little biased sometimes. I love both you and Ray and your bots, but that fight, man, that was something. I don't know if we'll ever see another fight like it. Not just because of how it went, but to have a knockout with 2 seconds left and just to go the distance with a bot like Tombstone. I mean, looking back on that, because obviously it's been a while since it actually happened, but for you, watching that fight, what's going through your mind now that you're looking back and watching it play out from a fan's perspective?
Oh, well, going back and watching it, it's totally different because when I'm in there and I'm actually driving the robot, I don't really remember anything. I'm focusing on the driving and I'm trying to execute a plan. But looking at it now, it was yeah, it was I guess it was pretty impressive because I actually didn't I wasn't sure how my armor was going to hold up against Tombstone, and we had designed that plow for big, heavy-hitting horizontal spinners. And in theory, you know, like we're like, it should work, but we actually didn't know. We've never really tested it out. Well, we tested it out against Ice Wave, but I don't think he got his weapon up to full speed when we got to him. Tombstone's a different animal, so it was pretty much like the worst hits you can get at that point. So so watching it was just like pretty amazing seeing how, I guess maybe it's just the geometry of the plow, the design of it works so well, deflected those hits. We did get some recoil out of it. Obviously they're big hits from Tombstone, but he was definitely all over the place. And it was just very impressive how Rotator held up. Very impressed with that.
Yeah, I think that you guys, and what's crazy is that everybody's calling it like the biggest upset that they've seen, but yet your bot, and this was kind of the cause for this whole fight coming together, was awarded, most destructive last year. And of course, Ray being Ray, and I love the guy to death, but he plays the villain so perfectly. He's just like, he's the most destructive. Well, we'll see about that. And then you go toe to toe with him and you end up beating him by knockout, which we don't see a lot. Usually it's Tombstone that gets the quick knockout. You guys went almost a full 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 58 seconds, and won by knockout. So what is it that makes your guys' robot so great, and probably in your mind you don't feel that was an upset? Because I understand why people do, but did you think it was an upset? I guess I should ask you that.
I think I would agree. Like, if I'm a casual fan or I'm not familiar with the robots, or even if I am, we haven't gone past the round of 8. Last year was our best. Well, it was our real best run. In 2016 we had one fight and we were out like in 40 seconds. And it was just some steep learning curve we had there with a heavyweight class. And then in last year in 2018, did really well, considering that we were still in the process of learning how the robot's going to perform. Because 2018 was really the first time we were able to run Rotator more than one fight. And a lot of the builders, we don't really have the opportunity to test outside of the event because it's not really safe. So our first fights usually are experimental tests of the robot. So it was fantastic. Last year was kind of surreal. We got into the top 16 and did great. You know, the design lends itself to being versatile. We're trying to balance the offense with the defense. So, you know, we got to the round of 8. We got destroyed by Bite Force. So if you watch us coming in this season, I'm sure people would think, yeah, they've got no chance against Tombstone. So I'm not surprised by that. I always feel like the underdog when I'm going into the fights.
Yeah, and I think that's a good mentality to have, just because, you know, there's only a few people I know that could walk into a fight confident, and that's, you know, going to be Ray Billings, Paul Ventimiglia, and, of course, Don Hudson. I feel like those are the three names that could walk into a fight feeling like they're not the underdog. But for you guys, talk to us about your off-season, because there was a lot of changes that were made, and I'm trying to recall if they were intentional or time-saving changes, because normally we see the dual blades, you know, the one on the top and the one on the bottom, so that if you get flipped, you're still pretty much the exact same as you were before the flip. But this is the first time we've seen a single blade or spinner configuration with the wedges on what would be the bottom.
Yeah, so, well, last year, like I mentioned, Bite Force pretty much annihilated us. We were actually kind of lucky because last year that was the only frame we had. So I was happy we fought him near the end, not in the beginning. And so we there was definitely a lot of luck involved. So then, you know, looking back at the previous fights, we had some great fights with like Ice Wave, Scorpios, Warrior Dragon, but we recognize that in terms of offensive capability, we're hitting at the right height, basically, with the top blade. The top blade did a lot of damage because people just weren't expecting it. But if people were expecting it, I don't think it would have done as much damage as other robots because we don't really have the power behind their blade. Whenever I would watch the fights, I wouldn't be too happy with the fact that after almost every hit, our blade would stop, and then we'd have to run away a little bit, spin up again, and come back and try to hit them again. It made driving a lot harder. So this year, I wanted to definitely increase the power. I also wanted to improve the driving because I wasn't too happy with the driving. It's always spinning out of control. Sometimes those spin moves are on purpose. Sometimes they're not. I'll admit that. It's just such a hard robot to drive because with the 2 discs jutting out, it's a lot of mass far away from the wheel centers. So it tends to oversteer quite a bit. So I wanted to improve the drive. I wanted to improve the weapon. I also wanted to make it easy to repair because we knew now what level of damage to expect. So in the off season, we went and we actually redesigned a whole new Rotator from the ground up. New frame, new armor. The only armor we did reuse was that big plow that we used against Ice Wave and Tombstone now. And the wheel guards that went along with it. That was one, I guess, constraint that we put on ourselves. We want to reuse that armor because it had only been through one fight and it's kind of a waste not to use it again, just throw it away. So new frame, doubled up the weapon power, so we have 2 weapon motors now for each disc or each blade that we use. And that was kind of tough because you're packing more motors, more electronics, more batteries, and so I had to sacrifice a little bit on the frame side, and then made the frame modular. So the actual core of Rotator are the 2 wheels and the bottom disc, or the bottom bar. So then in the backside, we can actually attach different modules, as I call them. So one module is what I call it the forks, which is what we saw with Sawblaze and Bombshell. And then another one is the plow or the defensive configuration, which is what I used against Tombstone. And then the third one that we have is the double disc. So we actually have a separate frame that's got motors and electronics inside, and you bolt that on and you get the double disc configuration.
So obviously there's a lot of bots that have multiple configurations that they can do. You guys were so well known for having your dual blade configuration, though, just because it was kind of those one of those best of both worlds where you're that way, but then if you get flipped by like a Bronco or this season a Hydra, you're basically have the exact same design, just upside down now, if you even call it that. So for you, though, watching these three configurations play out now against guys like Bombshell and Sawblaze, and then this big win over Tombstone, like, do you have a preference, or is it still always going to come down to who your opponent is?
Yeah, it's really going to come down to who our opponent is. What I was learning is that Rotator's always been versatile. That's the whole. You get flipped upside down. It doesn't really affect us. It doesn't change the design. We always wanted to be or have some sort of offense, even if we're flipped. Most robots, when they're flipped, even if they are invertible and they can drive upside down, they're not as effective. We wanted to be equally effective right side up or upside down. But what I've been learning is that, especially in this weight class with the level of competition that we have, is that we have to really be adaptable. And sometimes one of the things with last year's Rotator is that we only had one set of armor, and it was pretty heavy armor. But I realized that some robots, they're not going to cause as much damage as, let's say, Tombstone or an Ice Wave. So we make a judgment call, and it'd be nice if we can put lighter armor and then make a heavier weapon so we get more offense. So that's the whole design, I guess, theory behind this year's Rotator, where it's a little more modular. We can actually adapt to our opponents, because the double disc, as we've seen, isn't always effective against every single type of robot, especially vertical spinners.
Yeah.
So then we definitely have to come up with a plan for that type of robot, because we were already 0-2 before this season against that type of bot. So we're basically trying to get a design and a strategy for every single robot that we can face, so we're always prepared.
So you guys are now, I guess after the Tombstone fight, a big 1 and then 2. Is that your current record as of right now?
Let's see. We're 2-1 now.
2-1 now. Okay.
So, yeah. So we had the first loss against Sawblaze, where I really wanted to go with a double disc for that one, and I also didn't want to reveal the new configuration in the first fight, but we didn't have it available, so that was, I guess, the second best option. And so we lost there on a judge's decision, and then we had the knockout against Bombshell and the knockout against Tombstone, which is pretty crazy seeing that.
Yeah, I feel for Bombshell, man. I really hope they can get their stuff together. Same with Captain Shredderator. You hate to see, veteran bots that have otherwise very good teams and designs, come up short with one issue after another. But you guys, obviously, you're adapting, adjusting. And so my question now, 2-1, and of course, that could have been the other way, 1-2, depending on that outcome against Tombstone. The Desperado Tournament, which we just had, always an exciting time, and it ensures you a spot somewhere in the top 16. Have you thought about that tournament? Like, is that something that you're willing to throw your name into depending on how the season goes? Or do you feel like even if you had a 1-2 or a 1-3 record, and that one being over an opponent like Tombstone, that should be enough to get you into the 16 on its own?
Well, what's interesting is that last year we actually put down our names for the Desperado, even though I think we were 2-1 or 3-1 at the time. I can't remember the timing, just because we weren't sure if our wins were impressive enough.
Gotcha.
And then this year, the Desperado Tournament actually got started earlier. So they started taking names for the Desperado Tournament before we had our match with Tombstone. So we were 1-1.
Oh, wow.
And it was actually pretty tough for me, because I was, discussing with the team, and it was really tough for everyone, because everyone, it was a lot earlier for everyone. So some robots were 1-0 or 0-1. Some robots hadn't even fought at all. And the producers are already taking names for the Desperado Tournament. And we're like, what do we do if we haven't even fought at all? So we were 1-1. And I'm thinking, well, we made top 16 last year. That's going to help, but, that's not going to guarantee anything. We didn't get knocked out by Sawblaze, and they were a top robot last year. I can't remember if they went out in the round of 8 or the round of 4. But, Sawblaze is a very good robot. We didn't get knocked out. We kept going the whole fight. Bombshell did very well in 2016. It kind of just shows how hard it is to manage and upkeep these robots, that they just made some slight tweaks, and this season it's just having a terrible time. But Definitely a great team and a great robot, but it's just so hard to get the robots competing at the high level there. So we're like, we knocked out Bombshell, which was a runner-up one year, and we lost only to a judge's decision, so maybe we're okay. So this year we opted not to put our name in the Desperado, but we were really considering it just because the timing made it even harder to decide.
Yeah, let me ask you about that, because I've noticed that there's been some, I guess, timing things that seem off this season as compared to last year. And you said that that the time of the Desperado taping was actually before your fight with Tombstone, and there's been several bots that I recall seeing in the pit while I was down there towards the end of the tapings, in fact, throughout the whole tournament of 16 and then crowning a winner, that I have yet to see fight at all. And there's only been a handful, or there's been several that have only fought once or maybe twice, where several of you guys have had your third fight already. So is something different about this season as opposed to last year, and do you know why that was?
So I don't remember exactly. It's funny because it was like a 2-week nonstop exercise. Just go to the pits. Well, wake up early, go to the pits, work, go home, go to sleep, wake up, repeat. So I don't remember all the details, but I know they were getting the names and were locking down the Desperado before our Tombstone match. I just don't remember when they filmed it, though. It may have been around the same time, but but yeah, there's a lot of great fights this year. I think a lot better than last year. You can see there's a lot of carnage, I think, especially in episode 6, and there's a lot of new robots too. But I guess for the fans who may not be familiar, the way they set it up in the studio, as I guess I can call it there, the warehouse where we were filming, is that every day they would have 2 sessions of filming, and each session was an episode. So let's say we're by episode 8 now, so this was only 4 days of competition. Oh, wow. And then some robots, the timing is interesting when you think about it. So by day 2, we had already filmed 4 episodes, and they would always film an extra fight. So they would have it's 7 fights in a session plus an 8th one. Yeah, about eight fights per session, because the 8th fight would always be the I guess what would be considered like the Science Channel bonus.
Oh, okay.
So there were tons of fights every day. And if a robot went down and it took them a couple of days to get fixed, that would actually translate to 2 or 3 weeks in viewers' time. So there was a whole thing with Deep Six. I don't know all the details about Deep Six. I never actually got to see it self-destruct in the test box. It was really awesome that the show included that. That's like sort of content that we love to see, because everyone's asking like, oh, what happened to Deep Six? And I knew they spent some time trying to figure out how to get their robot stable enough to be able to compete it. I'm guessing it took them a couple days, because they finally got on now, and I think in episode 8. But I noticed also that they're shuffling around the fights. So, for example, I remember we were 4th fight of the first session, so we were fight number 4. But in terms of the episodes, we were fight 1 of the first episode. So I think they try to organize things to, I don't know, maybe create a story or get to a climax point near the end of the episode. But it's interesting, even from like the builder's perspective, like, oh, like we're not sure when we're going to come up, even though a lot of us try to track down when we were filmed so that we can try to correlate it to episodes, but it doesn't always match up.
Yeah, no, the power of television, right? Not everything lines up the way that it does. Well, let me ask you then, as somebody who has submitted their name to the Desperado Tournament and has seen it played out twice now. So last year, I thought that it was whoever won that was guaranteed the number 16 seed, and that turned out to not be the case. However, I got to ask you, though, do you feel like the winner of the Desperado Tournament should be designated a specific seed? Not necessarily 16, but it's like they can't be seated in the top 8. Like, that's reserved for the bots that have actually gone undefeated or just about there and had really good seasons against really tough opponents, or does it really make any difference to you? Like, how do you feel as somebody who's thought about that option for BattleBots?
It's kind of hard to say, because with these machines, it could be I guess I could call it like binary. Like, it could be something where you have a great machine, but you have one glitch that you just can't figure out. And you could be losing a couple fights because you haven't figured it out yet. But then as soon as you fix that glitch and you turn the switch, you could have like a tombstone in your hands, let's say. So then all of a sudden you could just have like the most fearsome robot out there once it works. And so it's kind of hard to say. And I know for a fact that the producers, they're not only looking at win-loss record when it comes to seeding, because there's at the end of the day, we're trying to make a show. And so they definitely look at strength of schedule, definitely like maybe the showmanship or the flair the team has, like entertainment value. Like one of the greatest things I think that really propelled us is not just the fact that we KO'd Tombstone, but that the whole fight lasted almost a full 3 minutes, which is what people want to see. A lot of times, I think in the first session, even though there was a lot of carnage, there were a lot of quick fights, and I know the producers weren't too happy about that. They're like, guys, come on, you got to give it your all. Don't just flip them over and be done with it. Like, keep the fight going. So there's definitely a lot that goes into it. So even the builders themselves don't know the full story about what it takes to really get to the top 16. Everyone just tries to do their best and have the robot in top shape at all times. I think part of it that we learned also was that if they find out that you can't repair your robot or that it takes you too long to repair your robot, they may not select you because they'll think you won't be able to really go deep into the tournament or, have value there. So it's a little bit nebulous to us, but I guess to answer your question, it's hard to say. I guess depending on how well they do in the Desperado Tournament, it could give you a high seeding in the round of 16, depending on how the other robots do. But it's hard. I don't think there's any strict formula to seeding there.
Fair enough. Well, last question I have for you, and it's a big one. Was there anything said between you and Ray after that fight, off camera?
I think, well, it's funny because I had heard rumors that we were going to fight Tombstone, and it was a couple days before they actually announced the matchups. And I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe maybe they're just trying to get in my head or something. I wasn't paying attention to it, and before the fight, we're obviously scoping each other's robots, and I don't think he was as concerned as much as I was because he's Tombstone, and probably rip everyone to shreds. But it was interesting because afterwards, it was really interesting. It's they showed that hug on TV, which was totally genuine. I was going crazy because it was a crazy moment for me. So I was going insane, running around and stuff. And then afterwards, it was just really, all the builders have respect for each other, but it's one of the things, at least maybe in my case, where when you get matched up with someone, it may be a team that you don't really interact with much or you haven't really talked to. But in that whole situation where you're trying to develop your strategy and you're trying to maybe spy on them a little bit, you start getting to know them and you start talking with them and you get a little closer. So after the match, we actually started talking a lot more than before the match.
Oh, wow.
And it was interesting. The typical thing that builders do is like, hey, come over here, look at the damage that I got. Look what your robot did. Oh, let me see the damage I did to your robot. And we'll start taking pictures of each other's damaged parts and stuff. And it was really nice because they showed us, well, they basically, I don't want to ruin it because they may have a segment, but they had quite a bit of repairs, as you can see, because of the fire that went out. But so he was showing us all that. His team is really nice. They signed the tooth that we knocked off and gave it to us as a trophy. And then we had half a bar that we were able to give them all signed by our team. And we were taking pictures with our trophies, like, hey, look, they smashed our bar, we smashed their tooth. So it was really a cool experience, and
that's awesome.
Everyone's really down to earth people, so it's just friendly competition, and
oh yeah,
and then they're like, yeah, we'll be up and running in no time, ready to kick some more bot.
Oh, so you earned a little bit more respect in the pits that day. It's good. I think that's
it was great
for you guys. Well, hey, Victor, I really appreciate your time, man. It's always a pleasure getting to catch up, and especially after an incredible fight like that. I'm going to call it right now, Fight of the Year between Rotator and Tombstone. One of the craziest fights you'll see go almost all of 3 minutes.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, he is the man behind Rotator, walking a little taller in the pits right now as we approach the midpoint of the season, take a nice little break for Shark Week. So, Victor, thank you so much. You enjoy the rest of your night, man.
Great, thank you. You too. Have a good one.
All right. And one more big thank you to Mr. Soto of Rotator as we get into the midway point of a nice little break from BattleBots. It is Shark Week. Hope you're all enjoying it on the Discovery Channel or the Discovery Go app. BattleBots will be back with an all-new episode next week. So this week, obviously, you have the fan show and our great content to keep you at ease and give you that little taste, that little tease that you need to get through just 1 week, folks. Just 1 week, and then it's back to robot fighting time, my friends. So make sure that you have subscribed in some way, shape, or form so that you can be in the know and hear all the latest episodes. We've got a lot of video content coming your way, especially with the second half of the season coming up, because I was down there for the second half of the season. I got to see the Tournament of 16 play out. Oh, I cannot wait. So yeah, a lot of video content from the pit. Exclusive interviews with cast, crew, bot builders, fighters, and everything in between, including a lovely tutorial with head referee John Remar. You guys are not going to want to miss that one. So be on the lookout. Give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/fanshowofficial. Follow us on Twitter, either the flagship Twitter handle, which is @fanshowofficial, or for those of you that are just about the robotics, follow @fanshow_robotic. Not robotics, plural, robotic, because there wasn't enough room for the other S. So fanshow_robotic. And then, of course, the Instagram only has one account, the Fan Show. And that's where you can be in the know, in the loop, in on the action, all BattleBot season long, as well as everything else. We cover so many things: pop culture, music, wrestling, sports. I mean, like I said, everyone's a fan of something, and we have something for every fan. And every fan should be subscribed in one way, shape, or form so that you never miss a beat of the great audio content that is the Fan Show, the podcast, the ultimate form of football and nonsense and everything in between. And that is available on Spreaker.com, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. And yes, we do have a YouTube channel, which is where you will see all the latest videos, all the latest episodes, but right now the primary page is the Facebook page. So don't worry, where there's a will, there's a way. We've got a flavor for you to enjoy the Fan Show. And that's going to do it. We did a little bit of an extra longer one this week just for you guys because I love you so much. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember, it's not official unless it's Fan Show official, and we are officially out of here. Enjoy Shark Week. Watch Jaws on repeat. Get a tan, soak up some sun, get a Slurpee, get a slushie, whatever you want to do. Ice cream truck, whatever, I don't care. Just enjoy your summer because it's dwindling away right before our very eyes. Until next time, folks. This is Richard Teeman with The Fan Show, and best of luck to you and yours, and it's all fun and games until you butt fumble.
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love The Fan Show.